The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the creaking of Sarah's old house. She sat by the window, staring at the street lamp flickering outside. Sarah said, "Emily should have been here alive, laughing with me." The thought twisted in her chest like a blade. Then from the hall, a whisper cut through the stillness, a voice soft but chilling, one that should not exist. "Sarah," it breathed, fragile yet sharp. Her pulse raced as she clutched the frame, unwilling to look back. Memories of Emily's funeral flooded her mind. The coffin lowered, the dirt falling, final and cold. But now the sound of footsteps echoed behind her, dragging slow, wet, deliberate. Fear rooted her in place. Sarah said, "It can't be you. You're gone." The whisper came again, closer this time, the voice of the dead friend she mourned. The scream that followed cracked through the house like glass shattering, leaving Sarah trembling as the lamp outside went dark. Sarah gasped as the dark swallowed the room whole. Her heart slammed against her ribs like a frantic drum. "Emily," she whispered, though the name tasted wrong in her mouth. A creak echoed from the hallway, slow and deliberate, as if mocking her fear. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet her body remained frozen, trapped between disbelief and dread. Memories pressed hard against her mind, laughter in the sun, now replaced by silence in the rain. She thought of Emily's last smile before the accident, and bile rose in her throat. The whisper returned, this time closer, layered with sorrow and malice. Sarah said, "I don't believe this. You're dead." The words felt brittle, breaking against the truth she dared not face. The whisper became a broken sob, as though mourning from the other side. Sarah's skin prickled, every nerve screaming. She said, "If you're here, why do you sound so wrong?" A cold draft slithered across the room, carrying the smell of damp earth, a grave's breath spilling into her sanctuary. The air thickened until it felt like drowning, each inhale sharp as shards of glass. She clenched her fists, shaking, and forced her gaze toward the hallway. The floorboards creaked once more, then silence claimed everything. She wondered if madness had finally taken her. Sarah said, "No, I'm not imagining this. Something's here." The words wavered, fragile as a candle in the wind. Her pulse raced louder than her thoughts. The silence pressed in, so absolute it felt alive. Then the sound came again, faint, dragging, wet and unnatural. Sarah pressed her hands against her ears, shaking her head. She whispered, "It's not real, it's not real," but the sound only grew clearer. Footsteps soaked in mud, echoing where no one should be. Her body quivered, trapped between terror and disbelief. The shadows shifted along the hallway walls, stretching in impossible shapes. Sarah's throat closed as tears welled. "Emily, please, don't do this." The plea slipped out before she could stop it. The silence that followed was worse than the sound, thick and suffocating, leaving her gasping in dread. The air suddenly snapped cold, her breath fogging in the dark. Sarah staggered backward, hands trembling. A voice, broken yet familiar, called from the black. "Sarah, help me." It was Emily's voice, but twisted, soaked with something inhuman. Sarah's knees weakened, memories of their childhood flashing in fractured bursts. Holding hands in sunlight, laughing without fear, and then the brutal crash that stole Emily away. The sound of chains rattled faintly, as though dragging from another world. "You're not Emily," Sarah whispered, eyes wide with denial. The room pulsed with dread, shadows moving like living things. For the first time, Sarah realized she wasn't mourning anymore. She was being hunted. Morning light crept weakly into Sarah's room, but it did little to soothe her. The night's horrors clung to her skin like damp cloth. She stared at her trembling hands, whispering, "I saw her. I know I did." Her phone buzzed, pulling her back to reality, a message from David, her childhood friend and the skeptic who always grounded her. "You're not sleeping again. Come outside." She wanted to dismiss it, yet the need for someone living, breathing, and rational outweighed her fear. Memories of Emily's laughter stabbed like glass, sharp reminders of loss. Sarah rubbed her temples, trying to silence the whisper still echoing in her ears. "Maybe he's right," she muttered, voice hollow. But deep down she knew the truth. Last night wasn't a dream, and Emily's shadow was waiting. Sarah walked down the creaking stairs, every step heavy, as though gravity had doubled overnight. The house smelled faintly of damp wood and burnt candles. Her phone buzzed again, David's voice coming through the speaker. "You're spiraling again, Sarah. None of this is real." She bit her lip, anger bubbling beneath her exhaustion. "Don't tell me it's not real. You didn't hear her." The silence stretched until David's sigh broke it. "You need air. Come outside." She hesitated, staring at the hallway where shadows had twisted hours before. Her pulse quickened at the memory of footsteps. She muttered, "If I go out, it'll follow." Yet she reached for the door, knowing she could not survive the silence alone. The front yard greeted her with pale sunlight, dew still clinging to the grass. David leaned against his car, arms crossed, brow furrowed. At 23, he carried the weight of someone older, skepticism etched into every movement. "You look like hell," he said, forcing a chuckle that fell flat. Sarah hugged herself, whispering, "I heard Emily last night." His jaw tightened, irritation thinly veiled. "Sarah, you buried her. I was there. You're grieving, not haunted." Her eyes burned with unshed tears, her voice trembling. "You didn't feel her in the room. You didn't hear her whisper my name." The words hung between them, fragile and heavy. For a moment, David faltered, but quickly masked it with dismissal. David shook his head, his voice firm but weary. "You're letting grief eat you alive. You've always been sensitive, Sarah, but this is dangerous." Sarah's breath caught, words sharp as glass. "Dangerous? I saw her. She's not gone. She wants me." He ran his hand through his hair, frustration battling concern. "What you need is rest, maybe a doctor, not ghost stories." Sarah turned away, staring at the sky heavy with gray clouds. The air felt colder, as if the world itself recoiled from their argument. She whispered, "You didn't lose her like I did. You don't know." Her voice cracked, tears streaking down her face. David's silence answered louder than words, his disbelief cutting deeper than the night's terrors. "Oh, oh." The argument dissolved into silence, broken only by distant crows. Sarah wiped her face, her voice faint. "If you won't believe me, then just don't leave me alone." David softened, his tone quiet. "I'm not leaving, but you need to stop chasing ghosts." She closed her eyes, her body trembling. For a moment, she let herself lean on his presence, fragile as it was. But the comfort shattered when she noticed the muddy prints on the driveway, leading away from the house, fresh and wet. Her heart lurched, terror gnawing at her ribs. David followed her gaze, frowning. "It's just rain," he said, though unease cracked his voice. Sarah whispered, "No, she's here." The muddy prints led nowhere, vanishing into thin air, and Sarah's skin crawled. She said, "They stop here," like she disappeared. David forced a laugh, though his eyes betrayed unease. "Rain does strange things, Sarah. Don't feed this madness." But Sarah's gaze locked on the mist curling above the prints, moving like smoke alive. Her breath hitched, the air colder than the morning chill. She whispered, "I can feel her." David rubbed his arms, suddenly shivering though the wind was still. "You're scaring yourself," he muttered, but even he avoided looking at the mist. Sarah's heart sank as the silence deepened, more suffocating than any argument. In that moment, she knew Emily's presence wasn't a delusion. It was a haunting. Later that day, Sarah sat in the library, stacks of old books spread before her. The air smelled of dust and ink, a stark contrast to the grave chill outside. She muttered, "If Emily's here, there has to be a reason." Her hands shook as she turned brittle pages, words about restless spirits blurring together. A shadow fell across the desk, and she looked up to see a stranger, calm and composed, watching her intently. The woman's voice was low. "You're searching for what cannot be undone." Sarah froze, throat dry. "Who are you?" The woman gave no name, only a faint smile. "The dead return for a reason. You won't like the truth when you find it." The woman's cryptic warning gnawed at Sarah. She leaned closer, whispering, "What do you mean? Do you know her?" The ally tilted her head, her eyes sharp and knowing. "The one you hear is not your friend. She wears Emily's voice, but she is not Emily." Sarah's chest tightened, tears threatening. "I saw her. I felt her. It has to be her." The ally's tone remained calm, unnerving. "When the dead come back, they are bound to what drags them. She belongs to the dark now, and she wants to take you there." Sarah shuddered, her stomach sinking like a stone. The ally leaned back into the shadows, whispering, "Be careful what you answer when she calls." Sarah staggered out of the library, the sun already sinking into gray clouds. The street stretched empty, shadows pulling longer than they should. She whispered to herself, "Not Emily, not her." But the memory of Emily's voice still burned in her ears. Her phone buzzed. David again. "Where are you? You sound crazy." Sarah's voice shook. "She's not who I thought she was. Something's wrong." David sighed loudly, his voice sharp with irritation. "Stop feeding this fantasy before it breaks you." Sarah clenched her fists, whispering, "It's already breaking me." A gust of cold air rushed past, carrying the faintest echo. Her name, stretched and hollow. By nightfall, Sarah sat alone in her car, parked under a flickering streetlight. She gripped the steering wheel, breath shallow. "I can't run forever," she whispered. The radio crackled, though it was off. Emily's voice seeping through the static. "Sarah, come with me." Her knuckles turned white as she shut her eyes. "You're not Emily," she cried, trembling. The voice grew louder, layered with sorrow and venom. The streetlight above sparked, plunging the road into sudden black. Sarah's pulse raced, sweat dripping down her brow. For the first time, she accepted what the ally had said. This wasn't Emily. It was something wearing her best friend's skin, and it wanted her soul. Sarah slammed the car door and stumbled into her house, heart pounding. The air was heavier than before, walls pressing in as though the house itself listened. She whispered, "I can't keep pretending this is grief." From the hallway, the sound of dripping water echoed, though no faucet ran. The floorboards darkened beneath invisible moisture, the same wet trail she'd seen outside. Her chest tightened as she remembered the ally's words. She wears Emily's voice, but she is not Emily. Sarah's hands trembled as she pressed them against her ears, but the whispers still slipped through. "Sarah, don't fight me." Her knees weakened, tears stinging. "Why are you doing this?" she cried, but the only answer was silence that breathed. David arrived minutes later, barging in without knocking, irritation masking his concern. "Sarah, enough of this!" he shouted, voice echoing against the suffocating silence. Sarah turned on him, eyes wide with desperation. "She's here, David, don't you see?" He shook his head, refusing to meet her gaze. "You're losing yourself. You need help, not ghosts." His voice cracked, betraying the first hint of fear. Sarah's voice trembled. "You think I want this? You think I asked for her to come back like this?" David exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "Emily is gone. Stop letting her ruin you." But even as he spoke, the dripping sound returned, louder, filling the space between them like a curse. The dripping stopped, replaced by the sound of soft laughter. Emily's laughter, twisted and broken. Sarah froze, her lips trembling. "Do you hear it now?" she whispered. David paled, eyes darting to the darkened hallway. For the first time, disbelief wavered in his face. He muttered, "It's the wind. That's all." But his voice lacked conviction. Sarah stepped closer, whispering through clenched teeth, "Don't lie, you hear her." The laughter grew louder, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. David backed away, fear cutting through his logic. "This isn't real. It can't be." Sarah turned toward the sound, her chest heaving. "It's real, and she wants me." Sarah bolted up the stairs, desperate for distance, her footsteps frantic. David followed, shouting, Sarah, wait! She slammed her bedroom door, back pressed against it, chest rising and falling. From the mirror across the room, a shadowed figure emerged, Emily's face pale and lifeless, eyes hollow pools. Sarah's breath stopped, her scream caught in her throat. The reflection moved, though she hadn't, lips curling into a smile that wasn't hers. Sarah, the figure whispered, voice echoing from the glass. Her knees buckled as the room grew colder, frost forming along the edges of the mirror. She whispered, "This isn't real," but her reflection only grinned wider, mocking her denial. David burst into the room, eyes darting between Sarah and the mirror. "What the hell is happening?" he demanded, voice shaking. Sarah pointed at the reflection, sobbing. "She's here, David. Look at her." He turned to the mirror, but only Sarah's reflection stared back at him. His voice dropped to a whisper. "There's nothing." Sarah shook her head violently, her sobs turning desperate. "She's right there. Don't you see her?" The mirror's surface rippled like water, Emily's hand pressing from inside, pale fingers clawing against the glass. Sarah screamed, stumbling forward. David grabbed her shoulders, shouting, "It's not real." But deep inside, even he began to doubt his own words. The mirror cracked as Emily's pale hand pressed harder, sending splinters across the glass. Sarah screamed, stumbling backward. David gripped her arm, shouting, "It's not real. It can't be real." But the cracks spread like veins, and Emily's hollow face pushed closer to the surface. Her lips moved, whispering, "You promised me forever, Sarah." Sarah's body shook violently as the words cut deeper than the jagged glass. Her voice broke. "I never promised this." The reflection sneered, mocking her fear. The room grew colder, shadows wrapping around them like chains. David's voice faltered, his eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell are you?" But deep inside, Sarah already knew the truth she had been avoiding. The mirror shattered completely, glass raining onto the floor, but the figure inside did not vanish. Emily stood in the room now, body broken, skin pallid, eyes dark pools of nothing. Sarah collapsed to her knees, whispering, "No, you're dead. I buried you." Emily tilted her head, her smile sharp and cruel. "You buried me, but you never let me go. That's why I came back." David backed toward the wall, breath ragged, muttering, "This isn't possible." Emily's gaze shifted toward him, voice dripping venom. "You never believed. That's why you can't see the truth." Sarah's chest tightened as she realized the return wasn't fate, it was her fault. Emily stepped closer, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the floor. Sarah's breath caught, each inhale painful. "What do you want from me?" she asked, voice trembling. Emily leaned in, whispering, "You. Always you." Sarah's heart sank as a memory surfaced. Emily clutching her hand at the accident, blood pooling, her lips mouthing, "Don't leave me." Sarah realized the bond never broke, death only twisted it. David shook his head violently. "This isn't her, Sarah, don't listen." Emily's eyes darkened further, her voice sharp as knives. "He doesn't know what you promised me." Sarah's tears streamed as she realized the truth. She had begged for Emily not to leave, and the dead had listened. Sarah clutched her chest, sobbing. "I didn't mean it. I was scared." Emily's expression warped, eyes filled with rage. "Lies. You wanted me to stay, so I did." Her voice echoed like cracking glass. David lunged forward, grabbing Sarah's arm, trying to pull her away. "We have to run." Emily's figure shifted, her body bending unnaturally as she blocked the doorway. "You can't run from forever," she hissed. Shadows thickened around her, crawling like smoke. Sarah's body shook uncontrollably as she whispered, "Emily, please, this isn't you." But Emily's laughter filled the room, a sound both familiar and horrifying, sealing the truth. Sarah had tethered her friend to darkness. Emily stepped closer, voice dripping with venom. "You belong to me now. You brought me back, and I won't leave without you." Sarah's sobs echoed as David stood between them, shaking but defiant. "You're not taking her." Emily's grin widened, unnatural and jagged. She already gave herself to me. The room groaned, wood splintering as the air thickened with a suffocating force. Sarah screamed, clutching her head, memories of the crash flooding back. Her hand gripping Emily's, the whispered promise not to let go. The realization tore through her. She had invited this horror. Emily's voice cut through the chaos. Forever means forever, Sarah. And with those words, the last illusion of hope shattered. The house groaned under an unseen weight, windows rattling as the air thickened. Sarah clung to David's arm, sobbing, "She won't let me go." Emily stepped forward, her form bending unnaturally, her eyes blacker than night. "You called me back," she hissed. David stood firm, though terror laced his voice. "You're not her. You were just a parasite wearing her face." Emily's grin widened, mocking his defiance. Sarah's body shook, her voice breaking. "Emily, if there's any part of you left, please stop." The creature tilted her head, her voice a chorus of echoes. "She's gone. Only I remain." The floor split with a deafening crack, shadows surging upward like claws. Shadows lashed out, striking walls and shattering glass. David pulled Sarah toward the door, shouting, "We have to move now." Emily's figure blurred, flickering like a dying flame. "There's no escape, Sarah. Forever means forever," she shrieked. Sarah stumbled, her body weak, but her will burned. "I never wanted this. I wanted you alive, not this nightmare." Emily's face twisted, rage boiling through her pale features. "You begged me not to leave. You chained me here." The words pierced Sarah like knives. David dragged her forward, but the shadows blocked their path, writhing like living serpents. Sarah's heart pounded as she realized this battle wasn't about running. It was about breaking the bond. They stumbled into the attic, dust swirling in beams of moonlight through broken tiles. Sarah gasped, her voice trembling. "This is where we used to play, remember? We swore we'd never leave each other." Emily materialized in the corner, her broken body crawling forward, eyes glowing faintly. "You kept your promise, Sarah. Now keep it forever." David positioned himself between them, yelling, "She owes you nothing." Sarah clutched her chest, guilt tearing through her. "I tied her here," she whispered, realization sinking like a stone. Emily's face flickered between human and monstrous, her voice softening for a moment. "Don't leave me again." Sarah's tears blurred her vision, the attic spinning into nightmare. Emily lunged, her claws of shadow slamming against David, hurling him into the wall. He groaned, blood dripping from his forehead, but still forced himself up. Sarah screamed, rushing toward Emily, her voice breaking. "If you want me, take me. Leave him alone." Emily froze, her hollow eyes locking on Sarah. For a moment, the twisted grin faltered, replaced by something almost human. "You mean it?" she whispered. Sarah sobbed, clutching her chest. "I loved you, Emily, but this isn't you. This is wrong." Emily's face contorted in fury, her voice shattering the air. "You can't deny me. You made me." Shadows erupted, shaking the house to its foundation. Sarah fell to her knees, screaming above the chaos. "I release you. I break the promise. You don't belong here." The air pulsed, shadows recoiling as Emily staggered, her form flickering violently. She shrieked, her voice splitting into countless echoes. "You can't unmake forever." David pulled Sarah into his arms, shielding her as debris rained down. Emily's body twisted, torn between staying and fading. Her hollow eyes softened for a moment, the faintest trace of the real Emily breaking through. "Don't leave me again," she whispered. With a final scream, her body disintegrated into ash, shadows collapsing inward. Sarah sobbed against David's chest, the attic falling silent but heavy with dread. The attic lay silent, dust settling over broken beams and shattered memories. Sarah trembled in David's arms, her sobs muffled against his chest. He whispered, "It's over, she's gone." But Sarah's heart refused to believe. She pulled back, eyes scanning the shadows. "She said forever," Sarah muttered, her voice shaking. David brushed hair from her face, whispering, She can't hurt you anymore. Yet the air remained cold, heavy, the silence unnatural. Sarah's tears slowed, but dread replaced them, sinking deeper than grief. I let her in once, she whispered. What if she's still here? David had no answer, only silence that pressed harder than any words. They staggered outside into the night air, the house looming behind them like a corpse. The wind carried the faint smell of damp earth, the same scent that haunted Sarah since Emily's return. David steadied her, his arm tight around her shoulders. We need to get help, he said. But Sarah's gaze lingered on the windows above, where moonlight glinted faintly off broken glass. She whispered, She's not gone. She's waiting. David shook his head firmly. We survived, Sarah. That's what matters. Yet her body tensed as she felt the weight of unseen eyes watching from the shadows, her chest heavy with the certainty that the story wasn't finished. At the hospital, Sarah sat silently on the bed, staring at the sterile white walls. David spoke softly with a nurse, his face pale with exhaustion. Sarah's eyes drifted to the mirror across the room, her reflection staring back too intently. For a moment, the glass rippled, faint and almost unnoticeable. Her breath caught, hands gripping the sheets. She whispered, No, not again. The nurse asked if she was okay, but Sarah only shook her head, tears welling. David returned, kneeling beside her, his voice gentle. You're safe now. But Sarah's gaze never left the mirror, fear tightening in her chest. She whispered, Safe doesn't exist anymore. Nights passed, but Sarah found no rest. Every creak of the hospital walls echoed Emily's voice. One night, she woke, gasping, convinced she felt cold fingers brushing her cheek. The room was empty, yet her skin burned with the phantom touch. She sat upright, whispering, I broke the promise. Why won't you leave? The mirror across from her quivered again, just for a second, enough to freeze her breath. David slept in the chair beside her, unaware. Sarah reached trembling fingers toward the glass, her reflection shifting into hollow eyes. She screamed, clutching her chest, and David jolted awake. But by the time he looked, the mirror was normal, silent, and still. On her final night at the hospital, Sarah sat awake, refusing to sleep. The hallway was quiet, the world outside drowned in storm. The mirror across the room shimmered once more, and this time Emily's pale face appeared clearly, smiling faintly. Her voice slipped through the silence, soft and venomous. Forever means forever, Sarah? Sarah's lips trembled as she whispered, No, please. The lights flickered, the storm roaring outside, and the reflection raised a pale hand, pressing it against the glass. Sarah sobbed, unable to look away. The final flicker plunged the room into darkness, leaving only the whisper echoing. The story didn't end. It only began again.